Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. Her ex-husband was murdered that day, and she says she just happened to drive up the street where he was shot. That's what Wendi Adelson told the police, but her story keeps on subtly changing. And when you study how she says it, the truth gets even stranger.
Oh my God. And I tried to drive up Trescott and I saw that it was blocked. Okay. So I went to drive from my place up Trescott to get to ABC Liquor and it was blocked. So I just turned around. I was on the phone at the time. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. I went down Trescott. Okay. I saw a police car there and I just thought it was blocked. So I just turned. I was driving up the street. And I saw, the tape.
On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott?
It did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Trescott.
I did.
So you never turned on Trescott Drive that day?
I went to turn on Trescott Drive, but I saw that it had been blocked off by some tape, and so I just kept driving on Centerville.
And on your way to meet the friends, did you have an occasion to go down Trescott?
I was trying to turn down Trescott, but there was yellow tape up, and so when I tried to turn, I couldn't turn, so I made a 3-point turn and kept going on Centerville.
Let's break it down. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're new to this, what I do here is different from anywhere else, because what I do is strip away everything apart from the words said by the person at the centre of the story. And then I use my process of statement investigation to give us the key to seeing where the truth could be, where deception could be happening, and also the motivations of the person talking as well. It's a process that I use with corporate clients, with investigators, and with the media to get a deep understanding of what is being said. So, Wendi Adelson. Wendi's ex-husband Dan Markel was shot and killed. And currently 2 members of Wendi's family are doing time for being involved in that murder. That's Donna Adelson, who's Wendi's mom, and Charlie Adelson, who is Wendi's brother. And lots of people think, could Wendi be involved? Because, it was her ex-husband. Could she be involved in passing on information? Or was she just aware of what was going to happen to Dan Markel that day? And what we're going to look at in this episode is the curious story of Trescott Drive. Now, Trescott Drive is where Dan Markel lived. Wendi lived there herself when they were married. And on the day of the murder, not maybe 90 minutes after Dan Markel was shot, Wendi Adelson took a trip by car. Now, she could have taken a much more direct trip by car to go and buy some liquor, run some errands, and meet her friends at a restaurant in Tallahassee where she lived. However, she took a much more circuitous route all the way down to Trescott Drive, where she tried to drive down Trescott Drive, where the murder had happened, found a roadblock, came the other way, went and got her liquor, and then drove back up to meet those friends for the lunch meal. All very strange. And what I've noticed is Wendi tells the story very differently at different times in her history. So what we're going to do, first of all, is look at the day Dan Markel was murdered, because Wendi was taken into the police station for a police interview. And she talks several times about this drive down through Trescott Drive and why she did it. And then we're going to look at her at some of the trials of the people involved in the murder of Dan Markel, because Wendi is asked about the trip through Trescott in those trials as well. And as we've seen, her story subtly changes. So listen, the story changes. No big news there. Finding contradictions isn't going to be that hard to do, but can I use my statement investigation to try and find out what did happen? Did Wendi drive down Trescott? How far down Trescott did she go? And also, what were her motivations for going down Trescott? So let's go into the police station and see Wendi's first telling of her trip down Trescott Drive.
Can you tell me what time you left your house this morning?
Yeah, I was there. I didn't leave this morning. I didn't leave until noon.
Okay.
Oh my God. And I tried to drive up Trescott and I saw that it was blocked.
It was blocked at some point. I'm not sure what time it was blocked.
And I just thought, there's maybe some trees down or something. Cause sometimes.
Oh, you're saying as you drove down which one of the side roads?
When I'm going to a friend's party tonight, and it's a oh my God, what am I even talking about? I needed to buy, it's a stock the shelf engagement party, and so I went to buy bourbon.
Okay.
So I went to drive from my place up Trescott to get to ABC Liquor, and it was blocked, so I just turned around. I was on the phone at the time. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. So I just turned around and drove up the other way. I just thought, oh, sometimes when I lived there were electrical things that would happen. I left my house around 12:15 because I thought I'll get the bourbon and then I'll get some gas for the car and get super glue for one of the boys' toys. And I was trying to do all I can before meeting my two friends at 1.
Right, so that is the very first telling, almost at the start of that police interview. Now, look, I'm not going to judge a trauma response here, because if her ex-husband has been shot, there's likely to be some trauma going on there. Whether she's in on it or not, this is going to be traumatic. So some of the trauma things I'm not going to pick up on, because I'm not going to judge anyone on those. What I am going to do is look at the words. The first question: can you tell me what time you left your house this morning? And Wendi says, yeah, I was there. I didn't leave this morning. I didn't leave until noon. Now that all feels kind of truthful to me. She is a little bit stuttery there. Could be having some trauma going on, but she is asked about the time she left the house and she gives a time. So she directly takes on the question, which isn't always the case in police interviews, trust me. And then the detective confirms, okay. And then she gives us the, oh my God, and I tried to drive up Trescott and I saw that it was blocked. She volunteers the information that she tried to drive up Trescott. We've got that word tried, which always implies failure. Fair enough. It was blocked, so we've got that word tried. I tried to drive up Trescott and I saw that it was blocked. Now, interesting here, she's telling us about her observations and not her experience. She doesn't say, I tried to drive up Trescott and it was blocked. It's that she saw it was blocked. Almost as if the big thing for her driving up Trescott was not the fact it was blocked, but the fact she saw it was blocked. There's a very subtle difference there, but it's very important, I think, is that the big thing for Wendi on driving down Trescott on the day there when she's recalling this story is not that it was blocked, it was that she saw it was blocked. The most important thing for her was she saw the blockage. The detective says that it was blocked at some point. I'm not sure what time it was blocked. Wendi continues, and I just thought, oh, maybe there's some trees down or something, because sometimes, now we've got that word just, I point this out a lot. The word just is used in deception a lot. Every time you hear just doesn't mean someone's lying to you. I just want to point that out, so you can stop the comments right now. However, very often that word just is involved in deception. So when I hear it, I dig into what's being said. And here she's minimizing things. She's trying to draw her attention to just the one thing that she thought. I just thought maybe there's some trees down or something. So she doesn't want to have any questions maybe about, were you worried because your ex-husband lives there, your children were living there the night before? She's not focusing on any of those things. She just thought maybe there's some trees down or something. She really wants, I believe, to focus our attention only on what this thing is. Maybe there's some trees down or something. No big deal. Maybe some trees down. But you'll notice she's moved into explanation mode here. She was asked, what time did you leave the house this morning? And she says noon. And then she carries on with this story. Is she story selling? Is she pitching us a version of events here so that she feels she needs to get out to get ahead of the narrative, and she's doing it now because she's got this prepared to say, and it kind of fits the question, can you tell us what time that you left the house this morning? Noon. Oh, and here comes my story, which you haven't asked for. You haven't asked where I went when I left the house or which route I took when I left the house. You have only asked what time I left the house. So we're in explanation mode here, which is interesting, very noticeable. The detective says, oh, you're saying that you drove down which one of the side roads? Now that's a yes or no question. Yeah, I drove down one of the side roads. Maybe you would name the side road as well. Or maybe, no, I didn't drive down one of the side roads. I went down this road. But she doesn't do that. She continues in explanation mode. Well, I'm going to a friend's party tonight, and oh my God, what am I even talking about? I needed to buy It's a stock the shelf engagement party. And so I went to buy bourbon. So she's continuing with this explanation, which she hasn't been asked for, as to why she was down that road. She's giving us all the backstory as to why she was down that road. Although she's not, because she just says that she has to buy bourbon. It's not particularly about why she had to be where she was. It's about what she had to do here. And we have the phrase, and so, in the middle of that. It's a stock the shelf engagement party. And so I went to buy bourbon. And so is something that appears in storytelling a lot. It's not just a version of events, but it's this was happening and so this happened. It's more about giving reasons, excuses as to what happened, rather than just saying what happened. We see it a lot in deceptive storytelling, this. And so I've got a sense of defensiveness going on here, because she is getting ahead of things by going into explanation mode, and also just giving us these reasons and these excuses as to why things happened the way they happened. So I went to drive from my place up Trescott to get to ABC Liquor, and it was blocked. So once more is this and so storytelling. So I went to drive from my place up Trescott to get to ABC Liquor. Now she calls the shop, she names the shop that she goes to a lot, ABC Liquor. Now one of the reasons why that could be is that there were other liquor stores, nearer ones very close to where she was going to meet her friends for lunch, but she went to ABC Liquor, which is the liquor store that meant she had to drive all the way, far away from home, up Trescott Drive. You don't even need to go up Trescott Drive to get to ABC Liquor, but she decided this was a shortcut, as we'll see. So she names the store a lot as if it's important that that's the liquor store I was going to. I wasn't just going to buy liquor, I was going to buy liquor from ABC Liquor, and it's really important to her to get that store name in there. You'll see the block is real now. It was blocked. It's not just I saw it was blocked. Now the block is real. The road was blocked. And we get no mentions for other roads, you'll notice in this telling. It is just Trescott. None of the other roads involved that she does she talk about. She only talks about the road in question, Trescott. Although it's not the road in question, because she's still in explanation mode here. She says, so I just turned around. So, again, we've got once more an explanation for what happened, not just a what happened. I just turned around. Now, just is here again. She's trying to make this as small as possible. Yeah, the road was blocked. I just turned around. It's that word just again. Minimizing things, turning things down. I just turned around. Let's remember that phrase. Turned around. She turned around because she was on Trescott. She saw it was blocked, or it was blocked, and she turned around. I was on the phone at the time. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. Again, it's no big deal here. I just turned around and drove up the other way. We're getting a little bit stuttery. Once more, so is giving us reasons why things happened, not just happening. I just turned around. I repeat. The exact same things stand for me. We've got that word just. Again, no big deal this time. There's just a just turned around. Turned around again, saying that she turned around. And drove up the other way. Now, we have a data point here. Because to drive up the other way, up Trescott the other way, you must have driven down it a fair amount of distance in this telling of the story to drive up the other way. I drove up the other way. I just thought, sometimes when I lived there were electrical things that would happen. So again, I just thought. She's minimizing what was going on in her head. Don't ask me any questions about what was going on in my head. I'm telling you that I only thought one thing, just this one thing. I just thought when I lived there were electrical things that would happen. Not very straightforward there. Electrical things that would happen. She doesn't even draw them into the fact that these could be involved in blocking off a road. These electrical things would happen. Well, I'm in a road right now. There are electrical things happening. Like you can see, there are electrical things going on in here. The road outside is not blocked off, but she has not joined the two things together, the electrical things and the road blocking. She wants us to get that impression, but she's not bringing the words to the fore. We also noticed, by the way, earlier, she thought there were trees down. So she says, and I thought there's maybe some trees down or something. So in the first telling, she just thought maybe there were some trees down. In the second telling, we have, I thought there were electrical things that would happen. So now we've got two reasons as to why she assumed Trescott was blocked. And it's really no big deal. So many data points going on here. I left my house around 12:15 because I thought I'll get the bourbon, then I'll get some gas for the car, I'll get some super glue for one of my boys' toys, and I was trying to do all I can before meeting my friends at 1. A very long answer to a couple of questions. What time did you leave the house? And, oh, did you go down a road? Very long answer. Lots and lots and lots of explanation. So here in this first mention in that we know of for her telling this story, she is explaining why she drove down Trescott in intricate detail. Already, past 1. She's minimising it with no big deal markers. Just turned around, just thought this, didn't think it was any big deal. Just no big deal, this thing down Trescott. It's such a small deal, although she describes it in great detail. And she's very clear on where she was going and why. Less clear on her thoughts on the roadblocks. She's very clear that she was going to get this liquor and why she was buying this liquor, where she was buying the liquor from, the party that this liquor was needed for, etc., etc. But her thoughts on the roadblock, it was trees down, it was electrical things. Now, some data points that we've got from this first telling in Wendy's own words. She drove down Trescott and turned back. So she drove down Trescott, then she drove back. She's told us that in her words. The roadblock reasons, the reasons why she thinks the road was blocked, trees down, but also electrical things. And the roadblock description is it was blocked. You know, I saw the road was blocked and it was blocked. Do remember those data points. She drove down and turned back. Trees down, electrical things being the reasons that she assumed the road was blocked for. And the roadblock description, it was blocked. Do remember those because they will change, and they change in the middle of the police interview.
I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry. And then I left the house around noon.
To go to the liquor store and the stuff for the party?
Yeah.
Okay, you went down which road you said?
I went down Trescott.
Okay.
I saw a police car there, and I just thought it was blocked, so I just turned around and drove to, I went down the rest of Centerville, went up Benton, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors, bought the bourbon.
I'm a little confused. You're up on Centerville Road. What's your purpose of driving down Trescott?
It's usually the shortcut to get to Monroe.
To get to Monroe?
I usually take it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe.
Okay, all right, so you...
I don't know why I said Monroe. I was thinking Mosaic, Monroe, Thomasville.
Okay, so when you come down into town on Centerville...
I almost always cut through Trescott.
Trescott and just drive by your old house?
Well, I do it as a way of like coming to terms with the divorce, but yeah, sometimes I drive there. If I'm too sad, I drive around.
Okay.
If the kids aren't home and I know they're not home, I feel better about driving by the house, but yeah, it's shorter and I just usually drive by.
It's shorter than going all the way down to Benton?
All the way down Centerville and around Benton. It's just a shortcut I always took.
Okay, so you turned around and went back to Centerville, I take it?
Yeah.
Down to Benton and went to the liquor store down there on Thomasville?
Yeah.
The one at Benton Road?
ABC Liquors, it's at, Benton.
Right. We now have more confusing stuff from Wendi. That extract starts off with, I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry, and then I left the house around noon. Now, I'm pointing these parts out because this is separate from the Trescott story, but very often people who are guilty will use words around dirt and suggestions of being unclean because psychologically they feel unclean. Wendi certainly uses those terms here. I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry and I left the house around noon. She's then asked to go to the liquor store, get stuff for the party. Yeah. Okay, you went down which road you said? Now, she didn't go immediately down Trescott, but that's the very first thing that she says. I went down Trescott. Now, maybe that's brought to her by you said, because this is the road she mentioned previously, Trescott. She said, I went down Trescott. Now, again, I went down Trescott implies that she went down Trescott. She was on Trescott and she went down it. She was on Trescott and went down it. Sounds simplistic, but it's going to become important as we look at some of the evidence that Wendi has given more recently. Then we have, I saw a police car there. So once more, she's telling us what she saw, not what was there. Again, what's important to her is her experience, and that is seeing the police car. Not, she couldn't go any further because of the police car, not that the road was blocked. I saw a police car there. So once more, what she saw when she was on this trip down Trescott seems to be very important to her, what she saw rather than what she experienced. And I just thought it was blocked. I just thought it was blocked. We have just again minimizing her thoughts. There was no big deal. This was very casual and she didn't read anything more into this, is the impression that she wants to give us from this story. Now, prior, the road has been blocked, just blocked. Now, the police car made her think it was blocked. Very different things. Thinking something was blocked is not the same as something being blocked. She almost is saying there, I saw a police car and assumed it was blocked. So I just turned around and drove. Again, just did this. No big deal. Just turned around and drove. And we've got drove again on the road. So again, she's saying that she was on Trescott, turning around and drove. I went down the rest of Centreville, which is interesting because she hasn't told us about the first part of Centreville that she took. It's just I went down the rest of Centreville, so she jumped straight to Trescott, went up Benton, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors. Ding! Mention of ABC Liquors again, the liquor store that is really the reason why she was in that area, bought the bourbon. We'll see there that she doesn't have any pronouns there. I went down Centreville, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors, bought the bourbon. So she's going heavy on the detail here, less heavy on what she did. The detective picks up on this. I'm a little bit confused. You're up on Centreville Road. What's your purpose of driving down Trescott? Because it's confusing to the detective. And she says, it's usually the shortcut to get to Monroe. Now, I know Monroe's important. I know I say I ignore everything apart from the words that are there, but she's misspoken here, as we will see. She meant Mosaic, which is the restaurant she was going to, but instead she misspoke and said Monroe. Now, why is that? Well, look, they both begin with M-O, so maybe she just misspoke, but her misspeaks usually come from somewhere. They're usually things that are in our mind. Just think about the last time you said something stupid. Maybe you were reading something on your phone and talking to your partner at the same time, and you're sitting talking to them, and then all of a sudden a word comes out, which is something that you've been reading on your phone or thinking about because of what you were reading on your phone. That's where misspeaks normally come from. It's something that's in your mind. We're holding maybe one or two thoughts and conversations at the same time, and they cross wires, and that comes out. So is it possible she was thinking of Monroe, which is where the hitmen who killed Dan Markel were staying the night before the shooting? I don't know. I can't prove that one, but it is very interesting that she talks about Monroe. But let's forget all about that for a moment and look at her giving her reason why she drove down Trescott. It's usually the shortcut to get to Monroe. So usually means not always somewhere I go. And remember that. She's saying usually here. She's not saying I always take it. It's the way I go to Monroe, Mosaic, whatever. But she's saying usually. Often that means, sometimes, but sometimes I don't. And the reason that she goes down there is it's a shortcut. So just believe her words. Usually, so not all the time, but sometimes she goes down Trescott. And the reason why is because it's a shortcut. Going that way is shorter than going the other way. The detective picks up on to get to Monroe, and she says, I usually take it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe. So we have the concept that's the exact same again, which is I usually, not all the time, just sometimes, as a cut through. Again, that's a shortcut to get to Thomasville or Monroe. And then she says, I don't know why I said Monroe. I was thinking Mosaic, Monroe to Thomasville. Gets a bit stuttery as if maybe she feels like she's made a mistake there when she has made a mistake. But she cleans it up there that this is a shortcut she takes to get to Mosaic. Now, do yourself a favour, go Google a map of Tallahassee and where Wendi Adelson used to live, where Trescott is, where Mosaic is. It's not really a shortcut to get to Mosaic, I don't see, unless there's something about Tallahassee traffic that I do not know about. However, let's believe her words. She usually takes it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe or to Mosaic. The detective says, okay, so when you come down into town on Centreville, she says, I almost always cut through Trescott. Now, this is consistent, usually, almost always, often, yeah, consistent, and it is a shortcut. She takes Trescott. The reason being, it's a shortcut, a cut through, but she's very, very consistent here with why she was driving down Trescott. The detective says, Trescott, and then you drive by your old house. And Wendi says, well, I do it as a way of like coming to terms with a divorce, but yes, sometimes I drive there. If I'm too sad, I drive around. And now we've got a whole new reason as to why she drives down Trescott. She does it, we get well, first of all, which says she's giving us a reason, an explanation, which is fair enough. It's that word well at the beginning of an answer means Drive by your old house, yeah, would be fine. No, it's not important, would be, again, fine. But well signals I'm going to give you an explanation. And she doesn't say it in very certain terms. I do it as a way of coming to terms with the divorce. Sometimes I'll drive there. If I'm too sad, I drive around. Now we have sometimes again. So once more, we have this thought of the fact that it doesn't happen all the time, this drive down Trescott when she's in that area. But we have a new reason now. It's not a shortcut anymore. It's something that she uses to come to terms with the divorce. If the kids aren't home, and I know they're not home, I feel better about driving by the house. But yeah, it's shorter, and I just usually drive by. You may have spotted the word just there. She's focusing us on that. But what the divorce is gone now. The coming to terms with the divorce is gone again. And once more, this is a shortcut. It's shorter, and I usually drive by, so she doesn't drive by all the time. So now we've got two reasons, but both the reasons, sometimes she drives there to get over the divorce. She usually drives there as a shortcut. It's not a route that she always takes. Do remember that, because it becomes important as we continue. The detective, well, he's a local. He's not seeming to buy this. It's shorter than going all the way down to Benton. She says all the way down to Centreville and around Benton. It's just... So we've got that word just. Forget this. It's no big deal. I'm just focusing you on how small this is. It's just a shortcut. So we've got shortcut again, consistency. I always took. So now we've got some deception going on with Wendi in her words, because this was a road that she usually took, sometimes took, and now it's a shortcut I always took. The two things cannot be true. So here she is getting something wrong. And that word just suggests to me that what she's doing is going, I need to get out of this. I'm being questioned very hard on this. So look, instead of saying, yeah, I sometimes did this, sometimes did that, I'm going to try and close it down by saying just, so don't think any more about it. It's just a small thing. Move on and talk about something else. And I always did it. So the reason I was there today, it's just always happened. That's always what happens. So we've got an interesting flip here from Wendi from it was something I did, a shortcut sometimes, to I always took it. Okay, so you turned around and went back to Centrefield, I take it. Wendi says, yeah. You'll notice we've heard lots of explaining and reasoning from Wendi, lots of long answers to fairly simple questions. Here's a short answer to a short question. You turned around and went back to Centreville, I take it. Yeah, she says, an indication she's telling us the truth, that she was on Trescott, she turned round and went back up to Centreville. Down to Benton, and then went to the liquor store there on Thomasville. Yeah, the one at Bentonville Road. ABC Liquors, yeah, it's at, Benton. So we've got the name of the store. Again, she really wants to get it out. If she was not on commission from them before, she should be now, for the amount of times she's mentioned it in this police interview. But she really wants to be clear that she's going to ABC Liquors and not just a generic liquor store to buy liquor. So here, in this second mention of Trescott in the police interview, she's consistent. It's a route she often took due to it being shorter. But then that changes, because also it's a route she sometimes took to come to terms with a divorce. So the reasons are adding up. And then it's the route she always took, so the reasons then get different. But there's just more of these. It's no big deal, Marcus. This is just a little thing. Do not focus too much on this drive down Trescott. Data points that we've picked up here. She did drive down Trescott. We've seen her say that, and also we have heard her just talk about it and driving down and turning back and coming all the way back to Centreville. So she did drive down Trescott. So this is consistent with the first telling there. Her roadblock description this time is a police car. So it was blocked before, but now she saw a police car. Listen, when I was going through this, when I was looking at this police interview and some of Wendi's testimony and trials, I spotted some more contradictions. Do you want me to break them down? Do you want me to look at them, to bring them to everyone's attention and see if I can spot out what part of the contradiction is the truth? If you want that, do let me know in the comments. Comment and let me know if you would like that. I will also see things like likes for this episode. I will see shares for this episode as well. And if it's getting a lot of views, likes, shares, I'm thinking this is something that is worth doing. Your comments will also help on that. So if you want to see more contradictions between Wendi's story as told in this police interview and the way she speaks about it at subsequent trials, just let me know. Comment, like, or share. Let's get back into the police interview now, and let's listen to Wendi. Now this time she's not talking to the police about the drive down Trescott. She's talking to her friend Jane, who's turned up to give her some, I guess, moral support.
I was driving up the street and I saw the tape, and I just thought, oh, maybe there's an electrical outage or something. I saw the street blocked. I was driving into town. I was running errands. I was meeting some friends for lunch, and I drove up Trescott because it's the shortcut. And so I drive up Trescott, and I see the tape, and I was like, I guess there was like an electrical outage, because sometimes we'd have trees that would fall or whatever, and so I turned around and didn't think anything of it. I was at lunch with 2 friends, and the officer shows up.
So she tells Jane, I was driving up the street and I saw like the tape, and I just thought, oh, maybe there's like an electrical outage or something, like I saw the street blocked. So here we have, I was driving up the street. Once more, very consistent on this police interview, the day Dan Markel was killed, or shot rather, and the day she did the drive up Trescott. I was driving up the street and I saw like the tape. So now we have tape. Before the road was blocked, we've had the police car, but now we've got the tape. And again, she saw it. It's not like there was tape there that I couldn't go any further. It's I saw the tape. And I just thought, so every time she talks about her reason for thinking this road is blocked, what went through her mind at the time, she puts just before it. No big deal. I just thought, oh, maybe there's like an electrical outage or something. So we have trees down, we had electrical things. Now she's saying she thought it was an electrical outage. Now they do all kind of hang together if the tree fell and caused an electrical outage, but it's not consistent telling of events. Or something, an electrical outage or something. So really no solidity there whatsoever. Like I saw the street blocked. Again, it's not the street was blocked and I couldn't drive down it any further. It was a shortcut. I was hoping to get somewhere quickly. It was I saw the street was blocked. It's all about what she saw. I was driving into town, I was running errands, I was meeting some friends for lunch, and I drove up Trescott because it's the shortcut. So she's in explanation mode again. She's volunteering all of this to her friend. There is might be a police person there as well, or a victim advocate or something like that there as well, that maybe this story is for their benefit. But really, she's in explanation mode about why she went for this drive down Trescott. She feels the need to try and explain it away. And I drove up Trescott, so we've got a data point there again. I drove up Trescott because it's the shortcut. So it's the shortcut to wherever, she doesn't say. But once more, the divorce thing, getting over the divorce, coming to terms with the divorce, whatever it was she said about it, that's disappeared. What we have is the shortcut thing again. She says, and so I drove up Trescott. You hopefully will have spotted the and so to let us know that we're in reason, excuse, explanation, storytelling here. And so I drive up Trescott and I see the tape and I was like, I guess there was like an electrical outage because sometimes we'd have trees that would fall or whatever. And so I turned around and didn't think anything of it. I was at lunch with 2 friends and the officer shows up. So I drive up Trescott. So once more, she's telling us she drove up Trescott, but she's telling the story twice because she's already said, I was driving up the street and like saw the tape. And then she carries on and says it was a shortcut and she drove up the street again and she saw the tape again. Now, when liars, and this is maybe what Wendi is, but maybe not, but when liars are telling a lie, they like to repeat the key points of the lie. Why? Because they don't want to waste energy saying them and you not believe them or you not take them in. They think the more consistent they are, the more believable their story is. They think there's more chance the lie will be heard, at the very least, if they repeat it twice. I don't know if that's what's going on with Wendi here, but she certainly is repeating it twice. I drive up Trescott and I see this the tape, and then we have the electrical outage reason. Sometimes we'd have trees that would fall over or whatever. She doesn't say here anything about why the trees would fall over. Just sometimes the trees would fall over. I guess trees sometimes fall over. Sometimes there's a cause of them though, or whatever. So again, there's a little bit of vagueness. And so, more explanations, I turned around and didn't think anything of it. I was at lunch with 2 friends and the officer shows up. You'll notice, by the way, in all her tellings on the day of this, she doesn't make any mention of Dan's house being on Trescott Drive. She doesn't make any mention of how close the roadblock was. I almost got up to Dan's house and the roadblock was there, or I didn't go anywhere near because the roadblock was at the other end of the road. She doesn't make any mention of Dan's house on Trescott or how close it is to the roadblock or anything like that at all. It could be. It was so far from Dan's house, I didn't think anything of it because, it was several blocks away from where he lived. That would be something I would expect to hear if it was the case. But Wendi does not mention that whatsoever. So in this kind of third pass over that story there. She drove up Trescott 3 times in the story. If you actually look at it, she's in full-on explanation mode. She's still vague on her reasons for the roadblock. There's for why she thought the roadblock was there. The data points I have for you: she drove up Trescott. Once again, she said that. She's been really consistent. She drove up Trescott. It's a shortcut. Shortcut is back again. Divorce, it's over there. It's forgotten about. And the roadblock description, again, is tape. Police car's gone. The block really is gone. This time it is tape. So that's Wendi on the day Dan Markel was killed, talking about her drive up Trescott to the police and to her friend Jane. Now, Wendi has been asked about this drive up Trescott at subsequent trials around the murder of Dan Markel. And coming up, we're going to look at Wendi and how she talks about this trip up Trescott when she is under oath and on the stand in court in the murder cases for her ex-husband, Dan Markel. Do you ever feel you're not being told the full story? You might be about to feel that way when you listen to some of this court testimony, and it's happening to us in bigger ways than that or closer ways than that. It's happening all the time, and I'm here to give you the key to seeing deeper, because this is about hearing the world with new ears, and I'm on a mission to share this skill with as many people as possible. So if you want to unlock that secret, do subscribe to this channel or follow it and join the movement. There's a whole load in the archives, like plenty of Adelson family breakdowns in the archives, a treasure trove of cases waiting to be explored, and you can learn from them how to spot deception just by listening to what people say. And do you know someone who needs this, someone who deserves to hear the truth in their lives? Then hit the like button. That helps this get out to more people. Share it directly with them. Recommend it to other people. Pass this on, because every single click an episode like this gets, every single share, it fuels the fire. It allows me to dig deeper, analyse further, and bring this life-changing skill to even more people. Do you want to jump into the courtroom now and listen to Wendi Adelson talk about the drive up Trescott? This is the retrial of Catherine Magbanawa, who was one of the organisers of the hitmen.
Do you know what time you left the residence that day?
I don't. I guess it's somewhere around noon.
And then went and ran your errands? On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott?
I did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Trescott.
I did.
All right, and when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there?
I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. There was some tape, and it looked like the road was blocked off, and so I just turned around and went back and went up Benton.
And had there been an electrical storm that morning?
I didn't remember an electrical storm, but in the summertime there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal.
All right, and you weren't concerned based on that experience that there could be something going on at your marital home?
Absolutely not.
And your ex-husband, Dan Markel, had your children at that time, right?
No, he did not.
Okay, so you had your children at that time?
No, my children were at preschool at that time.
Right, but who took them to preschool that day?
Danny would have taken them to preschool.
Okay. So it was his day. He was killed on his parenting day.
It was the day he would have brought them to preschool, and I would have picked them up.
All right. Did they spend the night with him the night before?
They did.
Okay. And you hadn't seen your children yet that day when you encountered the roadblock?
On Friday, no.
Okay. And were you on the phone when you encountered the roadblock? If you remember?
I was.
Do you remember who you were speaking to?
I do.
Who was that? You don't have to say the name, but just what type of person was that?
He was a friend. I hadn't caught up with him a long time. He'd moved to England, so I was probably a little distracted talking and catching up with an old friend.
Okay. And when you encountered, at the time that you encountered the roadblock or shortly thereafter, did you call the daycare?
No.
Did you call Dan Markel?
No.
Did you do anything to reach out to any of the players that we've talked about in this case?
No.
Did you communicate to anyone that there was a roadblock?
I didn't. I would have had no reason to do that.
Okay, let's dig into Wendi talking about this at the trial of Catherine Magbanawa. When on the way to your errands, did you go by the crime scene is the first question I'm going to pick on there. Wendi's answer is no. Now, this all just depends on definitions. She didn't go by the crime scene. The road was blocked. There was no way for her to go by the crime scene. So she gives a very truthful answer, which is no. There may be something where she could give a truthful and helpful answer. No, I did drive down the road, but the road was blocked, so I couldn't drive past the crime scene. She just says no. Look, that's fair enough. This is a trial, and she is giving the smallest answer that she can. She's not been asked to give a narrative here. It is a yes-no question, and she gives a no answer. On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott? She says, I did. Once more, we've got these truthful answers. It's a very straightforward answer. Did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott? I did. Now, data point there. This is consistent with what we saw in the police interviews. She was on Trescott and she encountered a roadblock. All right, so you did turn off Centerville onto Trescott. She says, I did. Again, truthful, short answer, and backs up the facts from the police interview. And when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there, is the question. And Wendi goes into Wendi mode. I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. This is the pattern we saw in the police interview. When asked what her thoughts were around the roadblock, she says just and minimises it down. Look, maybe she's doing that because what happened was huge. It was a very big thing, and she did not think about that when she was driving along. She just thought it was a small thing, which is why just an electrical storm or something, and she's comparing it to the big thing that actually did happen. But she's so consistent with this, no big dealness. I thought it was just an electrical storm or something. Also, electrical storms don't block the roads. It's the consequences of electrical storms that block the road. I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. And again, we've got that or something. I didn't give it very much thought. All very casual on this. There was some tape. It looked like the road was blocked off. And so I just turned around and went back up that. So we have, there was some tape, some tape. No mention of the police car that she saw, and it looked like the road was blocked off. So again, we've got what it looks like. It looked like the road was blocked off rather than the road was blocked off. And the first telling, the road was blocked. Now it's just the road looked like it was blocked, as if it was blocked. Might have been blocked, might not, but you know. And so, explanations, I just turned around. We have this just turned around again. She's very consistent with this, and this is kind of consistent with that first police interview. I just turned around and went back and went up that. Way more information than was asked for, by the way. You encountered a roadblock. What did you assume the problem was? I figured it was just an electrical storm or something would be the perfect answer to that question. However, she goes on to say what she observed, the tape. It looked like the road was blocked off. And then she tells us what she did. She turned around and went back up the road. So way more information that was asked for, which is just outside that pattern that we've seen of the yes, I did questions there. She's asked, and had there been an electrical storm that morning? She says, I didn't remember an electrical storm. But in the summertime, there's always trees falling and rainstorms. So pretty normal. Now, remember all of this, by the way. Keep track of all of this. You might have to watch this episode twice to keep track of it all, but keep track of all of this. I didn't remember an electrical storm, is what she says. So she wasn't remembering an electrical storm. But in the summertime, there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal. Now, that's really general. She could be talking about the African jungle there. In the summertime, there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal. That could be the Australian outback. In the summer, there's always trees falling and rainstorms. Or she could be talking about Trescott. In the summer, there's always trees falling and rainforms. So pretty normal. She doesn't bring her experience to bear there. I didn't remember an electrical storm, but often when I lived there, trees would fall due to electrical rainstorm or due to trees. There were always trees falling and rainstorms. So it would have been pretty normal for Trescott in the summer. But she doesn't say that. It's just this very wide general thing. All right, and you weren't concerned based on that experience. There could be something going on at your marital home. She says, absolutely not. Not no. She is very persuasive here. Absolutely not. Once more, there's no mention of anything that, you know, it was very far. It was blocks away from my old home, so I didn't think it was Dan's house or didn't cross my mind because I wasn't even thinking about it. It's just this absolutely not, which is very persuasive. It's not a no. It's like a super no. It's like absolutely not. And she's back to these buttoned down answers with no reason given. You weren't concerned at all. It's just absolutely not. From the narratives that we've had before, we're now being more buttoned down. And your ex-husband, Dan Markell, had your children at the time. No, he did not. Truthful answer? Very short. it's a factual answer. We know it's a factual answer. Very truthful answer. Very short. No, he did not. Okay, so you had your children at the time? Wendy's asked. No, my children were at preschool at the time. Right, who took them to preschool that day? She says Danny would have taken them to preschool. Interesting there. It's not Danny did take them to preschool. I don't know if that's a known fact or if there's any doubt about that, but Danny would have taken them to preschool is a bit more of a general answer. Don't know if there's anything on that or not, but it's a strange way of saying it. And then we just got a classic contentious divorce line. So it was his day. He was killed on his parenting day. And instead of getting a sad, at least he saw the kids on the day he was shot, or at least the kids saw their father. It's the last thing the kids will remember of the father was him taking them to preschool. Wendy wants to argue that it wasn't Dan's day. It was the day he would have brought them to preschool and I would have picked them up, is what she says. Did they spend the night with him before? They did. So we've got a very short answer there again, factual and truthful. And you hadn't seen your children yet that day when you encountered the roadblock on Friday? No, says Wendy. Were you on the phone when you encountered the roadblock? She says, I was. And then she talks about the person that she was speaking to. And at that time that you encountered the roadblock, or shortly thereafter, did you call the daycare? No, says Wendy. Then, button down answer, but truthful. Did you call Dan Markell? No, we know these things are true from call logs, and also I can tell they're true from how tight these answers are. Did you do anything to reach out to any of the players we've talked about in this case? No, she says again. Seems to be truthful. Did you communicate to anyone there was a roadblock? And Wendy says, I didn't. I would have had no reason to do that. I didn't. I would have had no reason to do that. I didn't would fit the short pattern of button down answers. Did you communicate to anyone there was a roadblock? I didn't. But then she goes extra to again persuade us that she's not involved in this area in any way, what at all. I would have had no reason to do that, is what she says. I would have had no reason to communicate to anyone that there was a roadblock. She really wants to know. No big deal. No, just electrical storm. Just thought that. Just turned round and drove out. So here in the first trial version of the story about Trescott Drive from Wendi Adelson. Very truthful answers in the main, if you're looking at what she says. Very tight answers. No long explanations in general, just very tight, very truthful answers in the main. But we do have and so storytelling. And when she talks about this drive down Trescott, there's no big deal. Just these things happening. Same markers that are in the police interview. Where she goes extra is very telling. That absolutely not just no. And I would have not have had a reason to do that is very telling. And there's an attempt to minimise, because when she's asked, did you drive by the crime scene? She doesn't say, I would have, but it was blocked. She just goes, no. Data points from this. She did drive down Trescott. She's still saying she drove down Trescott. The roadblock was tape this time. The police car has gone. And the reason is now an electrical storm. Slightly different from an electrical outage or electrical things. The reason now is an electrical storm. You might have noticed I glossed over something there in that testimony. That's because it's part of the contradictions that I spotted that we will do in the other episode if we have the demand for it. Donna's trial, which just happened recently. Wendy talks about the Trescott trip at Donna's trial. But before that, let's go to Charlie's trial. This is her brother's trial. And once again, Wendi Adelson talking about her Trescott trip.
All right, so what time did you leave the house to go have lunch?
I really didn't remember offhand, but I refreshed my memory and saw it was sometime around 12:45.
Okay, so it makes sense that you might have left your residence at about 12:30?
Sure.
Okay, and did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way from your residence to, I guess, to lunch or to wherever you were going next?
No, I did not.
So you never turned on Trescott Drive that day?
I went to turn on Trescott Drive, but I saw that it had been blocked off by some tape, and so I just kept driving on Centerville.
Okay, and when you had to turn around at the tape, right, to go back out?
I think I tried to turn right, and it couldn't turn, so I would have made like the kind of turn, like a K-turn, and kept going.
Was there a roadblock there with?
There was tape.
Yeah, and an officer was there?
I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car.
A law enforcement marked vehicle? Okay. Did you have any contact with the officer?
No.
Okay. Did you do anything after that to try to find out what was going on down that roadway?
No, I just assumed it was weather or maybe a tree fell.
Had there been bad weather that day?
No, but it was summertime and there's electrical storms and trees fall, so that would have been pretty normal for summertime.
Where were your kids supposed to be at the time that you encountered that roadblock?
They would have been at school.
And that's at the Creative Preschool?
That's right.
Who took them to preschool that day?
Danny.
And who was supposed to pick them up from preschool that day?
Me.
All right. So did you know for sure that they had made it to preschool that day at the time you encountered the roadblock?
I just assumed. I mean, if they hadn't made it to preschool, Danny would have let me know, but...
Did you attempt to call Dan Martell when you encountered the roadblock?
No, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was related to the house.
Oh, getting a little bit different now, isn't it? So we established the time that she left the house. I don't really remember offhand, but I refreshed my memory, so it was sometime around 12:45. You might have noticed the time she leaves the house changes a lot in Wendy's telling as well. From 12 noon, here it's 12:45. And actually, when she's asked, so does it make sense to you? You might have left your residence around 12:30. She says, sure. Just very vague on the time she left the house to make her trip up Trescott. Okay, and did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way from your residence to, I guess, to lunch or to wherever you were going next? And Wendy says, no, I did not. Now, this is different from the Catherine Magbanawa question, which was, did you pass the crime scene? It's, did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene? Again, I don't know how close she went. I don't know where the roadblock was, but she says, no, I did not. She really doesn't want to put herself close to the crime scene at all. Trescott, she's been quite happy talking about that, but if you ask about the crime scene, no, Wendy wants to be very far from that. So she is asked, you never turned out on Trescott Drive that day? A yes, no question, which could be answered simply with a yes or a no, and we get a narrative instead. I went to turn on Trescott Drive, but I saw that it had been blocked off by some tape, and so I just kept driving on Centerville. That's different, isn't it? That's not I drove down Trescott, saw the roadblock, turned round and drove back. It's I went to turn on Trescott Drive. So this is saying she didn't turn on Trescott Drive. I went to do it means I went to do it, not I did it. But I saw that it had been blocked off by some tape. Tape is up again as the reason for the block. And so, reason storytelling, I just kept driving on Centerville. So she's kept the word just in here, but she's changed the entire story. I went to turn on Trescott Drive, not I drove down Trescott to see the roadblock, saw that it had been blocked off, so just kept driving on Centerville. From that, you would think that she went to make the turn, saw that she couldn't, and carried straight on down Centerville. Never did her wheels of her car touch Trescott Drive at all. Okay, you had to turn around at the tape, right, to get back out. And what Wendy says is, I think I tried to turn right and it couldn't turn, so I would have made a kind of turn like a K turn and kept going. So I think all of a sudden her recollection has gone very vague. I think I tried to turn right. So again, this is a thing. I tried to turn right and it couldn't turn is what she said, which makes it sound like she could not get on Trescott because the road was blocked at the very start, as if, you know, it was completely a closed road. You could not get down Trescott. So I made a turn like a K turn and kept going. What she really wants to say is I was on Centerville all the time. So I tried to turn, couldn't, kept going. However, we do have this K turn in there. And the only way that can be true is if she went on Trescott and had to do the 3-point K turn to get out of Trescott back onto Centerville to keep going down Centerville. So this is a big, big change in the story. Was there a roadblock there, the prosecutor asks. There was tape, so the roadblock is tape again. An officer was there. I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car, is what she said. So I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car. She seems to want to take the police out of this roadblock as much as possible. Maybe, like I've said, to make it seem not scary or should not have been in any way scary to her. It was just tape. Roads blocked off by tape. Road blocked off by the police. That's a little bit scarier. Maybe that is something that would cause you to check that your ex-husband was all right or that your children were all right if the road they live on is blocked off by the police. However, she doesn't want to talk about the police. That's why she talks about the tape all the time. I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car. A law enforcement marked vehicle. Okay, did you have any contact with the officer? She says no. She doesn't say there was no officer, which is what she said before. I didn't see an officer. She just says no, which seems to me some implicit admission that there was an officer there, because she's very good at saying what didn't happen. No, there was no officer there. I had no reason to chat to an officer because I didn't see one, just saw the car. However, Wendy just says no, there was no officer for her to talk to in her telling. Did you do anything after that to try and find out what was going on in the roadway? She says, no, I just assumed it was weather or maybe a tree fell. I just assumed, so we've just here again, just is there in every telling of her thoughts about why the roadblock was there. It's just small, minimal, nothing much to it at all. I just assumed it was weather or maybe a tree fell. Interesting, I think the trees fall because of the weather. They're not two discrete things. It was weather or maybe a tree fell. Had there been bad weather that day? No. So she answers no. Last time she says, I didn't remember any, but this time it's no. But once more, we have this generic explanation that could be about anywhere. It was summertime and there's electrical storms and trees fall, so that would have been pretty normal for summertime. That could be all Florida she's talking about, not necessarily Trescott Drive. At the Katie trial, I didn't remember an electrical storm, leaving it open to the fact there could have been one. She just didn't remember it now. There was no bad weather that day. Her memory seems to be changing. Where were your kids supposed to be at that time you encountered the roadblock? She says they would have been at school. And that's the creative preschool? That's right. We can see we've got these really short confirmatory answers from Wendi when it suits her that are not narrative. Who took them to preschool that day? Danny. And who was supposed to pick them up from preschool that day? Me. All right. So did you know for sure they had made it to preschool that day at the time you encountered the roadblock? I just assumed, just there. I mean, if they hadn't made it to preschool, Danny would have let me know, but... Did you attempt to call Dan Markell when you encountered the roadblock? No. It's a yes-no question, and she could have just answered with no. It seems to be an honest answer, and she could have just left it at that, but we get explanations again. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was related to the house. That's somewhat downplaying. I didn't think it was related to the house. It's her first mention of the house being there on that street, but I didn't think it was related to Dan. In her world, this is related to the house. She didn't think it was related to the children. That's never entered her head. It's just related to the house. So here at Charlie's trial, the story has changed. Still, the no big deal, no recognition of the big deal that was there. There's less and so explaining, but the story has changed. Look at the data points we've got now. She's trying to say that she didn't drive down Trescott. She only tried, but she couldn't. The reasons for the roadblock, well, this time it's weather or a tree. So electrical outages, they've disappeared from her telling of all of this. And the description of the roadblock, she wanted to just say it was tape, but she was forced to add in the police were there. It was a marked car. Let's have another telling. One last telling of the Trescott trip story from Wendi Adelson. This is at her mother Donna's trial earlier this year.
Probably close to noon or a little bit after noon, I was meeting two friends who I would frequently meet on a Friday to have lunch with. And so I went to run a few quick errands and then meet them for lunch.
And on your way to meet the friends, did you have an occasion to go down Trescott?
I was trying to turn down Trescott. That's where I used to turn and take just the road I was used to. But there was yellow tape up. And so when I tried to turn, I couldn't turn. So I made a 3-point turn and kept going on Centerville.
And so you encountered a police roadblock at that location?
Yes.
Okay, couldn't go any further because there was a police car and some yellow tape, right?
Right.
And that was, you were able to see that from the intersection there, or you actually turned onto Trescott?
I tried to turn and then I couldn't go through, so I turned around and kept going.
How far down Trescott did you proceed before you turned around?
Just until the tape.
Okay.
Do we have another telling of the story there? It was probably close to noon or a little bit after noon. I was meeting two friends who I would frequently meet on a Friday to have lunch with. And so I went to run a few quick errands and then meet them for lunch. That's how that all starts off. You may have noticed the and so there. And on your way to meet the friends, did you have an occasion to go down Trescott? A yes, no question. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Possible, really straightforward, tight, true answers. And instead we get a story. I was trying to turn down Trescott. That's where I used to turn and take just the road I was used to. So we have, I was trying to turn down Trescott. So once more, this sort of backs up the story at Charlie's trial. Not I went down Trescott, but I was trying to go down Trescott, but couldn't. That's the impression that she wants to give. That's where I used to turn and take just the road I was used to. That's where I used to turn and take just the road I was used to. No big deal. That word just doing a lot of hard work for Wendi and all this telling of the Trescott adventure. And now, it's not a shortcut. It's not somewhere to get over the divorce. It's the road I was used to. Interesting change in motivation there. But there was yellow tape up. And so when I tried to turn, I couldn't turn. So I made a 3-point turn and kept going on Centerville. So once more, she wants to give us the impression that she didn't turn onto Trescott. She was on Centerville, looked, saw Trescott, was blocked and kept going. However, again, we've got this 3-point turn, which can only happen if she's on Trescott. If she does a 3-point turn when she's on Centerville, she's going back home. So this doesn't add up to her story, which is, I didn't go on Trescott. I don't want anyone to think I went on Trescott. I want to give the impression I was on Centerville. There was yellow tape up. And so when I tried to turn, I couldn't turn. So she couldn't turn into Trescott. That is what she is saying. But then we got the 3-point turn and kept going on to Centerville. She really doesn't want to say she went on Trescott. And so you encountered a police roadblock at that location. Yes, she says she does not want to mention it was a police roadblock. It's just yellow tape, not a police roadblock, but she has to say yes there. Couldn't go any further because there was a police car and some yellow tape, right? And that was, you were able to see that from the intersection there, or had you actually turned onto Trescott? And she doesn't answer that question. Could you see it from the intersection, or had you turned onto Trescott? She says, I tried to turn and I couldn't go through, so I turned around and kept going. So did you keep going or did you turn around? It's really confusing, this storytelling, Wendy, because you don't want to say now, for some reason, that you went on Trescott. How far down Trescott did you proceed before you turned around? Just until the tape. So we've got this minimising again. Just until the tape, i.e. not very far. If you don't know how far the roadblock was, that might just sound not very far. But she did not want to say she was in Trescott at all. She did not want to say that. She wanted to say, I just went down Centerville. So I couldn't turn. Just went down Centerville. So at Donna's trial, this is the biggest attempt to say that she didn't drive down Trescott. She avoids saying she drove down Trescott at all. It's implicit in some of the answers about turning round and continuing down Centerville, but she doesn't say she was in Trescott at all. And the data point, well, listen, she didn't drive down Trescott. She just kept going. That's the news story. The roadblock description was the tape again. So it's just this innocuous tape. Nothing much to worry about when it's tape. But the police roadblock was forced onto her, and she did agree with that. But the reason she went down the road was not the shortcut. It was not coming to terms with the divorce. It was the road I was used to. So that's all the tellings I can find of the Trescott story from Wendi Adelson. Overall, I get this big feeling from her wanting to make it no big deal. Lots of uses of minimizers and just, look, it's no big deal. I think the first tells are more honest. It's what you would expect. Her memory would have been sharpest that day, the day that it happened, the day that she made the trip. But after the police, you'll notice, so she was kind of emotional of that very first telling with the police. Oh my God, I went down Trescott. There's no emotion around her storytelling there whatsoever. Also, she's very locked into her story. She's not open to alternative scenarios. You know, she doesn't say, I wish I did know what would happen. Maybe I could have gone and got my kids first before I went to the police station. Or, you know, if I did, it would have been horrific if I'd gone further and discovered what had happened or something like that. She doesn't mention any alternative scenarios. She's just locked into this one story. But she's so attempting to no big deal it. But if it's no big deal, if she just turned around, if all these things just happened, just a little thought that it was an electrical outage, why did she try to minimise it so much? And why did she try to say that she didn't even turn onto Trescott in some of the later trials? We've got the changing reasons. So sometimes it was the shortcut that she usually went on. It was down to the divorce. Then it was the route she always goes down on. Then it was the one that she was used to. She doesn't have a consistent reason as to why she drove on Trescott. And the various thoughts that went through her head, that just went through her head. It was weather, it was storms, it was trees down, it was electrical things. She's not consistent with any of those things. For me, the first pass is the most truthful about the actions that she took. That's what she said in the police interrogation. She's less truthful there, though, about the reasons. I do not believe her reasons why she was on Trescott at all. She tells us about ABC liquor too much. She changes the reasons way too much in a short telling of time. And there's so many markers of storytelling when she does that. So what do I think? Where's the truth? I think she did go down Trescott Drive that day. I believe what she said in the first police interview about that. I believe she went down there. But I'm very interested as to why she talks about seeing the roadblock, observing the roadblock, rather than experiencing the roadblock. And she tries to minimise it all away too much for me to believe that there's nothing more to this story. And I do not believe the reasons that she has given for going down Trescott Drive that day. In my opinion, she's not telling the truth about them. Now, I did say I glossed over something earlier. It's this part. I want you to have a listen to this.
And were you on the phone when you encountered the roadblock? If you remember? Do you remember who you were speaking to?
I do.
Who was that? You don't have to say the name, but just what type of person was that?
He was a friend. I hadn't caught up with him a long time. He'd moved to England, so I was probably a little distracted.
If you want me to break down that contradiction, which you might know about it, plus some other ones I found between the police interview and trial testimony from Wendi Adelson, do let me know in the comments. And also, if this episode is a popular one, I'll know there's a demand to do more on Wendi Adelson. And what do you think about her drive up Trescott? Do you believe her story? Let me know in the comments here if you can, or you can get in touch on the socials. You'll find all them listed at neveratruerword.com. You'll also find their podcasts and videos, including a fair amount of things looking at the Adelson family. That's neveratruerword.com, and we'll see you soon with something new from Never a Truer Word.